another in the series of programs put on by Faith Tabernacle, building shatterproof families, one brick at a time. Tonight we talk parenting, a youth perspective, and even before we get into talking more about the topic and the introducing the panelists for tonight's program, let me say to you, you can feel free at any point in the program to interact with us. You can use the features beneath at the bottom of your screen, the task bar there on the, use the icons. There's an icon that says chat. You can click on that icon and type your questions in so that you don't get missed. If you look there as well, you want, and you see the reaction icon, you click on it and you would see the thumbs up or the applause. So you might see those things. Feel free to use them during the sessions, just so that we know you're there, just so that we know you're following, and you can share your sentiments even as you engage with us. Also, if you want to raise your hand, if you want to ask a question, you can choose to raise your hand as well. If you click on the participants icon, you will see on the bottom, you'll see a number of things there. You'll see, I think raise hand is one of them. And you'll be able to raise your hand and ask your question. We'll recognize you. We'll try to keep you involved in the program. Wonderful. So let me just share with you a little advertisement I have here before we introduce our panelists. So allow me to share my screen and we'll talk a little bit after that. I hope you're seeing my screen. Are you? Right.
Yes, we are.
Great. So vacancy, job opportunity, help wanted, someone to do a 24-hour shift, 7 days a week. There will be no holidays or weekends off. The person, male or female, must possess high physical and emotional stamina. There will be no salary, but returns are your personal satisfaction. I want you to take a moment, parents to be, young adults, everyone on this platform. And I imagine you have some sentiments that you might want to share in response to this vacancy announcement. We are going to hear from you a little bit later, so note those sentiments that you have. Vacancy announcement, job opportunity, help wanted. All right? So this evening, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let me move to introducing to you our panelists. So we're talking parenting this evening, and we are essentially having a youth perspective. Oftentimes, we talk about parenting, and we tend to talk about it from the perspective of adults, what we think it is, how we know it's supposed to be by our own experiences. But a key part of that is what the people we parent think about this whole thing called parenting. And so this evening, the young people will constitute the significant percentage, the most significant percentage of the panel. And we are going to hear parenting, a youth perspective. Of course, we have Dr. Neff with us. She's no stranger to us. Before I introduce the young panelists, Dr. Neff is no stranger to us. She's been with us for many of our programs. She's hosted, she's facilitated, she's been on the panel, and she is going to be one of the expert opinions on parenting. She's a parent. She is a retired professor from the University of the Arizona State University, and it's always been a pleasure to have her. Dr. Neff, just greet us tonight before we introduce the other panelists.
Thank you, David. I'm so excited to be here with this esteemed panel. Oh my goodness, to hear from the youth, their perspective, their experiences, that's valuable. So I'm so excited to be here on the panel with them, and I can't wait to hear what they have to share with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. Right. So as I said, and Dr. Neff alluded to, we have this exciting youth panel, and we've been able to get three very promising young persons from across our region. We have one from Trinidad and Tobago, one from Barbados, and one from Grenada. And they are going to share their views. And I'm just excited of how we were able to connect despite the geographical space and difference and be able to get everybody on the same panel. So let's hear, we have young Raynell Francis of Trinidad and Tobago. Raynell, we want to give you the opportunity to greet us and to introduce yourself to this platform. Raynell?
Yes, good night, everyone. As Brother David said, my name is Renelle Francis. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Trinidad. I attend the Faith Tabernacle Church, and one of my hobbies is singing, and oftentimes I'm called upon to give a special in church. I recently finished secondary school, but at the moment I'm studying for a few other subjects that is going to be taking place in January of next year, God's Spare Life. So I'm really excited for tonight's meeting, and I hope it goes well. I'm excited to share my views, and I'm excited to hear from Javon and Kayla and from all the other persons in the audience. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Raynell. Welcome. I look forward to hearing your views as well. Thank you. So we pass on to a young lady from Barbados. I invite Miss Kayla Renwick to introduce herself to us. Kayla?
Good night, everyone. My name is Kayla Rennick. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Barbados. I currently go to school at Harrison College and I'm in sixth form. I represent Barbados in two sports, swimming and triathlon, and I would like to take those to an international level and hopefully make it to the Olympics. I am currently studying a subject so that I will be able to do sports admin and management in the United Kingdom, and hopefully continue triathlon there when I go to study. With this discussion being new to me, I'm very excited for the experience and to hear from everybody and all their views on parenting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kayla, and congratulations on all of those things there too. We do wish you get to the Olympics. I'll be cheering and hooting along for you as well. Thank you. So Javon is a young man from Grenada, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to greet you and introduce himself.
Good night, everyone. My name is Javon Andrew. I am 17 years old and I'm from Grenada. Currently, I attend the TMR Show Community College that's based down here, the main college. And I'm currently studying, well, majoring in biology, chemistry, and geography. That's in natural science, with aspirations of going on to study sports medicine and specializing in physiotherapy. I play cricket at the national and regional level for Grenada. And I take part in a lot of other core curricular activities, which basically set the platform for me being an all-rounded individual.
Right. Thank you very much, Javon. So these are the youth panelists, and I'm sure you can hear promise. You can see promise in all three of them. And I'm just so excited. We are happy to have you and to have your perspectives on parenting. So let's get into this program. So tell me, what is this thing about parenting? Now, we might see fancy definitions and all of that, but tonight we just want to hear each of you share with us what you think parenting is. As you've experienced it, as you know it, as you see it, talk to us. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you.
I think parenting is having the ability to raise decent and responsible children so that they can be able to function on their own. Parents are mostly responsible for creating a strong support system and helping their children to develop in certain areas that they have little to no experience in, such as education, their spiritual life, socialization, and the list goes on.
Thank you very much, Raynell. You said some very powerful things there, the responsibility to raise some decent and responsible children who can eventually live on their own, involving socialization and education and all of these great things. Thank you. Probably eventually someday we might see our Francis at the bottom of that definition somewhere in a book. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Jovan or Kayla?
I'll go next. For
Thank
me,
you.
I said parenting is the way a child is taught and guided in order to become the type of adult they are expected and taught to be.
To be concise, it is the way a child is taught into being the kind of adult that he is desired to be, right? Wonderful. Thank you much. Javon?
All right. To me, I believe parenting is basically setting a foundation or a platform for children to be molded and guided into, as Renal said, responsible adults based on the morals and values that those respective parents hold.
Right. So thank you very much, Javon, Kayla, and Raynell. So those are your perspective on parenting. So Dr. Neff, the young persons have shared their perspectives on parenting. As a parent yourself and as a professor, tell us your thoughts on parenting. You're muted.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Parenting is a job that none of us is ever fully prepared for. You know, when you purchase anything, and it could be as simple as a pen, and there are some fancy pens out there, or as large as a car, you're given a manual that tells you how to turn it on, how to troubleshoot different things, how to utilize the washing machine. There's this big manual, this thick manual, and now you can even get the manual online on how to function in your new role as an owner of a piece of equipment. When you parent, there is no manual given to you that says, okay, this is what you do when you have a child. This is how you hold the child. This is how you feed the child. This is how you troubleshoot. There is no manual other than what the Bible provides us with. So as parents, we are thrown into a job. I love the job description that you shared at the opening. We are thrown into a job that we are not prepared for. We did not go to school and get a degree in it. We did not get a certificate in parenting. We have this job to do that takes up 24 hours, 7 days a week, no pay, yet we are responsible for shaping and molding these impressionable lives into what God has designed them to be. So I want to share some thoughts on parenting that hopefully will help you think about it in a new way. I'm going to I have a little prop to share with you. This is a bottle of marbles. In this jar of marbles, I have, and you don't have to guess how many, I'll tell you, there are 936 marbles in this jar. And those numbers, 936, represents the number of weeks you have with your child from birth until that child turns 18 and moves on to the next phase, big phase in their life. So as a parent, you have 936 weeks. I took the privilege of using pennies when I was doing one of my parenting classes, and in a jar I had 936 pennies. That's $9.36, right? That represents a penny per week. And what God has given us is a charge to take care of those 936 weeks that we have with our children, to mold them, to guide them, to cherish them, to nurture them, to help them fulfill the role and fulfill the, what God has planned for them. So my question to you parents is, what have you done with, or what are you doing with those weeks that you have with your children. Now, this is birth, all right? So now let me show you another jar, and I have one for each age, but I'm just going to show you a few. This is 9 years of age, the midpoint. As you can see, the jar is half empty or half full, however you want to look at it. But the bottom line is that you now have 468 weeks with that child. Now, as the child goes up in age, the number of weeks diminish until you get to the age of 18, when that jar is now empty. You've used up all of your weeks, 936 weeks gone. What have you done? I think Raynell is approaching that at some point, and maybe even Javon. So the number of marbles in your jar would be just a few. So parents, what have you done with those weeks? The charge to you is to be intentional and strategic about how you use those weeks, to be certain that you are guiding and molding your children in the way God has designed you to guide and mold them, because He has given them to you. And even though we don't have a manual per se, we have His word that tells us how to train up a child in the way that he or she should go, so that when he's old, he will not depart from it. Those are just some thoughts to get you thinking.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. And indeed, they have gotten us thinking. The 936 weeks that we have, and the time we need to intentionally, I like those words, Dr. Neff, intentionally use that time to do exactly what the young people defined parenting as, to create the experiences and to create the moments and the sharing and the teachable opportunities to create the kind of adults, to build, to set the kind of values, and all of those things came out from the definitions that the young panelists have raised. So soon enough, I want to get some comments from the audience, but let me ask the young panelists one more question before we get some interaction from the audience. Thank you, Dr. Neff. So Dr. Neff has shared about the 936 weeks and the need for parents to be intentional about doing things, using that time appropriately, because at 18, the jar is empty. So can you share, young panelists, what is one experience, one very memorable, rich, and memorable parent-child relationship that you can speak of, and share with us how you think that has positively impacted you? Because the reason I'm asking this is that parents listening in the audience can hear firsthand from young people how some experiences could positively impact, and how these marbles in the jar, if properly used, could leave lifelong marks and really, really positive imprints. So who wants to go first?
I don't mind speaking first for this one. Right. So one of the best experiences that I had as a child growing up, well, it's kind of broad, but the investment of time into activities that I took a particular interest in, right? Two particular examples of that would be one, when I was at the grade 6 level, preparing to do CPA. There would be afternoons, my dad and I would sit and we would do a lot of mental math practices, right? And we made it fun. Usually, actually, we started off at a level called the maths baby, right? And as I grew in confidence and I was answering a lot faster, we used to upgrade the level. So I moved from a maths baby to actually a maths fetus to a maths baby. Then from that, I moved to a maths toddler, and then it became maths boss, and whatever you want to call it after that. That was important for me because math became my favorite subject at that point. It still remains one of my favorite subjects to this day. And I think that bit of nurturing there kind of helps a lot in establishing, that strong figure as a parent, right? Another experience would be with the cricket. I know when I was extremely young, my dad used to do a lot of the throwing and catching drills with me. And right now, it pays a lot of dividends when I play cricket, because I'm a wicket keeper, and basically, no, there's hardly a ball I would drop or miss because of that. So the early practice I used to get with him, the spending time in those particular areas helped to shape a lot of things for me and my successes that I enjoy today.
Well, that must be some good little credit to your parents there. Um, sounds good. Sounds good. But listen, I mean, you heard the time spent. I think that came out pretty clearly. The time spent, and though it must have been earlier on, you realize it still has lasting impact. Thank you very much, Jovan. Uh, who wants to go next between the two young ladies? Kayla, like you, okay. Yes, Raynell, sorry.
Okay, so one memorable moment that I remembered from my mom, I'll do it in two parts, from my mom and from my dad. So from my mom, I remember that she would always push me to keep going when it concerns my business. I have a small business, and she would always help me to develop on the ideas to help my business grow. And instead of always giving me fish, she would teach me how to fish. So that taught me to never depend on anyone when I know that I'm capable of doing it on my own. And for my dad, I remember one situation that I can recall from my dad is that one time he gave me money to go purchase something in a store, and I went and I wasn't really paying attention. And when I came back to the car, he inspected the item and he noticed that there were a few damages on the item. So he instructed me to go back to the store and ask for an exchange, but I was too shy to do so. So he went to the store with me, and in other words, to show me how it's done. And he politely asked one of the workers for an exchange, and the transaction was successful. So that showed me to always speak out and to never settle for anything other than the best, and to always pay attention, because if I was paying attention at that time, I would have noticed that the item had a damage and I would have choose a different one other than the one I chose at that time.
Thank you very much, Raynell. You heard a lot of positive things coming out of there. And I'm hoping that parents on the platform, you're taking note, because the confidence that is instilled there, the teachable moments that are embraced to allow her to know that I could be assertive, I can speak out. All of these things are priceless investments that you put into the children, that even though you did it when they were 6 or 7 or 8 or 10, when they're 17 or 18 or 19 or 25, they would still remember. Thank you very much, Rena. Kayla?
One of the moments I remember, mine is also a bit broad as well, is traveling, whether it be for like a competition or just trying to get to Trinidad every year for Christmas on that early flight at 7 o'clock in the morning, having to leave home and be ready for 5 to get to the airport. I think that has allowed me to be very open-minded and like very culturally aware of everything that's around me. And that is one of the things I definitely look forward to every year. No matter how early the flight is, I always am ready to wake up and get to the airport for 5 o'clock just to have that time with my mom at the airport. Long lines, whatever it may be, is definitely a favorite experience.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that tells a little bit about time spent and the quality of it. And it didn't matter how long the lines are, but if you with the right company and you're enjoying it, it's all good. Right. Thank you very much, young people. Dr. Neff, did you want to share one of your own experiences? It might be interesting before we take any comments from the audience. Now, you are a mother yourself. You're an adult, a retired professor, but I'm sure probably you might be able to think of something back then that you probably still remember. Talk to us, and then we go to the audience.
You're forcing me to go way back in time to remember.
Well, I think you have good memory.
I do have good memory. You know, one of the memories that I have growing up, because I grew up in a very large family, 10 children, is when on Saturday nights, it was family night. You know, we had church on Sunday, but on Saturday nights was family night. And we would, after having we didn't call it dinner at that time, but after having our supper, we would gather around and we would play games. Some would be playing snakes and ladders, some would be playing Ludos, some would be playing cards, dominoes. But we would, we'd be on the floor, on the table, wherever. But that was a time when my parents taught us the value or the importance of time spent together. We would play games. Some of us enjoyed winning a little more than others. Some of us found other ways to win, but it was fun. And whenever I think of that, I have this wonderful place in my heart, because all I could think of was us as a family just enjoying each other, enjoying time together, having fun with our parents. And that, who would know that that memory would be of such value to me even to this day as I think about it. And it just reminds me of time spent with your children, with your family, is time well spent.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. And even after retiring from professorship, you can still remember that. It tells how impactful that is. Thank you all very much for sharing those experiences. Now let's pass to the audience. I am sure there are lots of things that you've heard from as early up as the advertisement to some of the sharings that the young panelists have shared. So even the last very issue that we talked about, your most, one of your most treasured childhood experiences. Any comment from anybody in the audience, Dr. Neff, before we go? Yes.
David, could you share that advertisement again? Because we have those online who have not seen it.
Right, so let me try to share that ad again. Coming straight up. So it says vacancy, job opportunity, help wanted. Someone to do a 24-hour shift, 7 days a week. There will be no holidays or weekends off. The person, male or female, must possess high physical and emotional stamina. There will be no salary, but the returns are your personal satisfaction. Your response from the audience. Questions, comments, reactions to the advertisement. And I'm going to stop share so I can see what's happening on the screen. Who wants to comment? What do you think of the advertisement? All right, so I see MC, please. Good night, happy to have you. So we may be having some audio challenges there. Okay, so we seem like we're having some audio challenges there. What's your reaction to the... Yes, we're hearing you now.
Hi, at first sight, I wouldn't want to apply for that job. Definitely not. Because
Right.
I cherish my holidays. And I want to be paid to cherish my holidays. So I wouldn't apply for that job.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Do you happen to have children?
No, I don't.
Or you don't? Do you plan to have any?
No.
No?
Yes, I plan to.
Okay, well,
Yes,
get familiar.
I plan to.
Right, well, get familiar with it, with the job description.
Right, right.
Because I don't think they understand today's a holiday. But
Exactly so.
Yeah, but thank you for sharing that, because it just tells you what the depth of what this parenting thing is all about. There's just no season, there's no time off. You're always at it. So thank you very much for your thoughts on it. Anybody else? I find you're pretty cold on me tonight. So anybody has a pretty nice experience from childhood that you still remember that you want to talk about before we move to the next element? See, well, pardon me, what's your name? You had a device that said MC. The last speaker, I'm still with you.
Oh, I'm Rhonda. I spoke after MC.
Oh, you spoke after MC, so we lost MC then. We didn't get to hear what MC.
Yeah.
Right, so Rhonda, do you have an experience that you still remember that was positive from childhood? that even as an adult you still remember and think about?
Yes, I have really, really great memories with my grandmother. Not so much with my parents, but I grew up with my grandmother.
Right,
I would just see my parents on the weekend because of how they worked.
right.
But with my grandmother, she been in the kitchen making tulum, fudge, nut cake, learning how to make ice cream with how you call it, the one that they turn to make the ice cream.
Ice cream
Those
cans.
those fond memories were really, really good. She just showed me how to cook, how just practically how to do everything. She was just such a sweet lady, and I just cherish every single moment with her. Every single moment. She combing my hair to go to school. Every single moment. Really, really great.
Yep, yep. Thank you. And that speaks to time spent. And Dr. Neff said time invested in your children and spent with them is time well invested. Maria McKean is saying on the chat, 24/7 on the clock. That's her response to the advertisement, yeah? Someone else is saying something on the chat as well. Somebody says parenting has its challenges, but it's very rewarding, right? Anybody else wants to comment? Thank you very much for your sharing. Anybody else wants to comment before we move to the next set of items for hearing from the panelists? Okay, so let me move to the panelists. Thank you, audience, for your reaction. Thank you, Rhonda. And MC, I'm sorry to be referring to you like that, but your device showed up with those letters. So if you have your audio settings sorted out and you feel to share at any point, feel free to indicate and we'll be happy to have your comment. Right, so panelists, we talked about this positive experience that you've had at some point that has really impacted you. Have you seen, have you heard, do you know of situations that young people face in parenting situations that are not so positive, that you think impact them negatively? Can you share one of those so that those parents listening in the audience and those of us listening as parents and would-be parents can be guided by some of those things that you experience, that you have heard, that you hear your friends talk about while you're in school and college, wherever you are, that we can be guided about and by and know to do differently about. So, shoot, this time, Javon, you go.
All right, so basically one of the stories that I've heard about the most in speaking with my colleagues, and to some extent I can relate to it, is that sometimes we as children feel like parents don't listen to us enough, right? Now, a particular example of that was shared with me, and I want to relate to it as well, is that sometimes you might have a particular situation, probably even when you're the oldest child and you have younger siblings, right? There's a bit of conflict that you have between the both of y'all. And when it's taken to the parent, there's usually tends to be, I don't want to call it favoritism, but the younger one always seems to get the benefit out of that situation, right? And sometimes as an older one, you don't feel like you've been heard or you've been listened to. So I have some friends who have told me as a result of that, sometimes they try to avoid getting in interactions with their younger siblings and even with their parents in order to stay out of that trouble, because sometimes it is just frustrating. I mean, I have had this happen to me here as well, not to the point that I feel frustrated, but it has happened here as well as a personal experience. So I know that is one thing that plagues the minds of a lot of us as children.
Thank you, Javon. So the issue of not listening to bigger ones sufficiently, if you have more than one sibling, Kayla may not be able to identify with that just yet, but but if you have more than one sibling, the issue of feeling that you're not sufficiently listened to is shared among colleagues of Javon, and he can identify with that, he says. I'd have to talk to his parents about that. You know, and seeming to give preference to the to the younger ones. And parents may have good reasons for that, and probably parents could chime in when when we get a break from what all the panelists might say, but we hear that, not listening enough. Kayla, let's hear from you. Thank you, Javon.
An experience I heard about was the absence of a mother or a father would both affect a child. As a male or a young man without a father, although it's not impossible, it's still advantageous for a male role model to be present, and it still plays a major role in the development of a child. I think that although yes, you can look up to your mother as a role model, having a male figure present is still necessary, and it leaves a child with a less sense of direction, leaving them to figure out how to be a quote unquote man by himself. And it leaves them looking for someone to fill that gap.
Yeah, yeah. That's a significant challenge, and a lot of our people in Caribbean societies, a lot of our young people have struggled with that, not having that both parents, and frequently not the male is absent. And I mean, I'm glad that some people are able to identify that it's a challenge and that it's something that needs to be addressed. And probably we'll speak to that a little bit, Dr. Neff, after, in terms of single parenting and how we can still try to buffer and bolster the optimal parenting experience for persons, right? So thank you very much, Kayla. That's a significant challenge and challenging experience that young persons face in our Caribbean society. Thank you. Raynell?
Okay, so I remember this one time I witnessed two neighbors having a heated argument concerning a dog entering a small opening in the other neighbor's fence and damaging some property. This was going on for some time until the affected neighbor was seen throwing rocks at the neighbor's dog. This is how the argument started, and from my knowledge, there are a number of things that could have been done to ensure that it didn't turn out in that way, such as the affected neighbor could have simply just put something there to block the dog from entering his yard, or they could have just sit and have a discussion. But either way, something they could have kept in mind is that their children were looking on. And in terms of conflict resolution, they weren't setting a good example for if their children had to encounter a similar situation in the future.
Wow, that is pretty profound. I mean, the poor model. So you make a strong point about modeling, Raynell. Thank you. And I'm hoping that we're hearing it, parents, would-be parents. These young panelists are saying that they think one of the worst experiences she's seen, parent-child experiences, one of the worst, is where there was a poor modeling of the anticipated behavior in relation to conflict, setting a bad example. And so you would realize that the young people are looking on and they have expectations that the models be good, that the examples be very good. All right. So comment, audience. Any comments in response to what the young panelists have shared? They shared three outstanding points about some of the less preferred experiences, not listening enough, giving preference to the older siblings or the younger siblings, if you're the older one, and the absence of both parents, males not being in the home, and the poor model from parents to their children. Any comments, any response from the audience? Any of those? Do you
Hello, good
agree?
evening.
Yes, good evening.
Hi,
Welcome.
good evening. Thank you. As a parent of two boys, it's so important as a parent for us to be mindful of the way we speak, the way we act, and everything that we do. You know, we can't try to discipline our children and tell them not to curse or do certain things, and then we do it ourselves. So we also have to be mindful of what we do because our children look up to us in every way, whether we see it or not. You know, they're looking at us and they're looking to us. So if we have a certain behavior, we can't get at them if they are doing the same thing. They're mimicking us. So we have to be very conscious of everything that we do, you know, and try to be that role model that they are looking up to.
Very much so. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that sound input. We are supposed to be the role models for our children. Thank you. Who's next? I see Georgie. Yes. Georgie, you were going to comment? Yes.
No, not as yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see several hands up. Aisha, yes.
Hello.
Good night,
Hello.
welcome. Aisha
Good
has
night.
been a panelist with us on times before. It's really nice
Yes.
to have you, and I'm seeing the hands, so I'm gonna get to them, but good to have you, Aisha. The floor is yours.
Yes, I just want to say quickly because I'm not a parent yet, but I'm an auntie, godparent of many, and I lead the youth group. And one of the biggest challenges that the children there basically mention is that they don't feel understood, not just listened to, but oftentimes when they're sharing their experiences, parents, in their quest to balance discipline with being a listening parent, they have a tendency not to show that they understand what is being said. It's almost as if they weren't young, or if they didn't have these challenges when they were teenagers. So that's one of the things we have to be mindful of, is that the teenagers want to feel as if they are not just heard but are understood. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's good to share stories that you happen to you, things that you did too, things that were wrong that you are not proud of, but this is how you overcome it, those kinds of things, so that they feel like, my mother is not that old after all. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And she's real.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So not just being listened, but being heard, being understood
Heard.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Heard
yeah.
and understood. Thank you very much, Aisha. Lloyd, Sonny Lloyd, I think. Yes.
That's right. You pronounced it right. It's Sony.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem at all. So I mentor, I don't have any children. I am a fur mom, but I don't have any children. But I do mentor young girls ages 10 to 12. And something I noticed with them is that they lack the family dynamic. A lot of the children that we speak, like I mentor, they tell us how they don't communicate. It's something you guys have mentioned, but also too, it's like everybody on their phone. I had one girl, she told me we gave them an activity where we were teaching them etiquette. And she said, well, our family, we don't sit at the table and have dinner. We sit in front of the TV. It's just those simple values, just being able to sit at the table, having that conversation, engaging your kids, educating your kids, and then also, like you guys have been saying, is listening. These kids are so angry. That's something I've noticed mentoring. They're so angry, and it's because they don't have that freedom of expression. They feel like they can't talk to anyone, etc. So I really think it's important, and I'm not a parent, but I think it's important to get back to those family values, sitting at the table, talking to each other, listening. My family, we play games like card games and board games and all those stuff, just to open that line of communication.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. Communication and family values, the opportunity to pass them on. And you're very right. Time on the table, that's an excellent opportunity to do that. And sharing in games, the mistakes you make, how you pardon yourself, how you make up for them, how you apologize. All of these dynamics and values come into play in such settings. Thank you very much. Vimana Moraine, I hope I got the name correctly. I see your hand up.
Yeah, Vimana, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
When I became a mother, I realized the error in my parents saying to us, do as we say and not as we do. And I heard that all my life. And in having my daughter and my son, I realized I have to model what they're supposed to do rather than say, do one thing and then say one thing and then do another, because our children become what our children model, their behaviors model based on what we do. And they may attempt to do as we say, but their actual behavior and their actual character is based on what we are doing rather than what we are saying. So that forced me to look at the things that I'm doing and change, because I didn't want them to model a certain type of behavior.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's more so what you see modeled to you that you would follow more than what you hear and what you are told to do. Thank you. Thank you much. I think that explains why if you take a child and you bring that child in China, they would automatically speak Chinese. Even if you tell them to speak French, they would automatically speak Chinese, whether you like it or not. Wonderful. Thank you very much, audience, for those meaningful bits of input. Let's move along. Dr. Neff, in fact, no, before we take Dr. Neff, let me ask the young panelists again. How has your parenting style, your parents, have there been changes in the way they've interacted with you when you were younger compared to now? You are all teenagers. You are between 15 and 17. So I imagine the experience you have now might be quite different to the experience that you have had, or that you had probably 9, 10, or 11, 12. Talk to us about the differences you've experienced in your parents' parenting style with you. Who wants to go? Let's go with Kayla. Let's start with you.
As we get older, there's a lot more responsibility and there's a lot more expected of us. I would say, obviously you shouldn't, like, your parent, you at 16 years old should not expect your parents to have to remind you to like brush your teeth every night or every evening or anything like along those lines. As you get older, they expect those things to like be routine and they expect you to understand those things. I would say, although a lot more is expected and there's a lot more responsibility and stuff like that, there's also a lot more lenience. So they're not gonna, at 6 or 7 years old, they're not gonna expect you to be out till like 11 o'clock in the night. But as you get older, they expect you'll be able to carry yourself a certain way and expect that you can stay out that late and still do everything that you're supposed to do.
Thank you very much, Kayla. So I'm hearing more expectations. There's a bit more privilege, a bit more responsibility too. So a little more responsibility, a bit more, in fact, and people would say with responsibility, with privilege comes responsibility. So a bit more privilege, you can stay out a little longer, but more expectation. Thank you very much, Kayla. Javon, let's hear from you.
All right, so there are major differences in the parenting styles from when I was younger and now, mainly in the fact that at this stage, being a teenager, getting into young adulthood, there is basically an allowance to start getting your feet out there individually, to start exercising those morals and values that those parents have instilled in us from a very tender age, right? I think allowing us to get a feel of life's different scenarios for ourselves helps to build the confidence in those values that we have instilled in us. And I think that is a very important and key part of the parenting. And I definitely appreciate that as a young individual coming up, the freedom that is given to me to make my own decisions. And at the end of it all, I am commended and also been told that some of the decisions that have been made are very good. It also does well for my confidence as an individual, knowing that I'm making proper decisions as a young adult. So I think that's very crucial in transitioning in the different stages of parenting.
Thank you, Javon. So we here giving you a little more space, similar to Kayla, a little bit more space to make your decisions, and even the aspect of complimenting. So in other words, you're being evaluated, you're being given the space and coached as well, mentored as you make those decisions, so you can know if it's a good decision and you feel validated and it does well for your confidence. Thank you. Raynell?
Okay, so one of the parenting the changes in parenting approach that I experienced was that at one time I used to be scolded for doing something wrong. And as I grew older, it started to change from being scolded to having certain privileges being taken away temporarily as punishment. And now, as a teenager slash a young adult, my parents would now use dialogue to correct me and to encourage me to do better next time. And I think that that is very helpful at this point in my life.
Yeah. Thank you very much, panelists. And it's clear for all of these panelists, those of us listening, that there have been obvious and intentional, Dr. Neff used that word earlier, and intentional decisions and changes in the parenting approaches by parents. Dr. Neff, will you tell us a bit about parenting styles, and probably to what extent that could correlate with what these young people have shared? You're muted, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Parenting styles, oh boy. You know, oftentimes as parents, we parent the way we were parented. Some of us have had really excellent role models in parenting. Others have had not too excellent role models, and we tend to learn either to model to parent that way or make a decision never to do it that way. But parenting style is very crucial to how we raise our children. And the research shows that there are 4 very distinct styles of parenting. Let me tell you what they are, and then I'll go through each of them. The first one is authoritarian. The second one is authoritative. Then we have permissive, and then we have the uninvolved parent. So I'm going to read some statements, and as I read them, kind of let me know, maybe thumbs up or whatever, if that sounds like you or like how you were parented. You believe that kids should be seen and not heard. Kids should be seen and not heard. Some of us have heard this growing up. You know, kids should be seen and not heard. Or when it comes to rules, it's my way or the highway. When it comes to rules in this house, it's my way or the highway. Or kids don't have feelings. Your feelings are not important in this. I make the rules. Therefore, your feelings do not come into play. Well, if any of those ring true or anything that's similar to any of those reminiscent of what you've experienced or how you tend to parent, then you are an authoritarian parent. An authoritarian parent makes the rules and they enforce the rules without exception. So when a child questions something and the parent says, because I said so, that parent is an authoritarian parent. They are not interested in negotiating or compromising or trying to find out how the child feels about it. It's my way or the highway. I make the rules, I enforce the rules, you obey the rules. So the child is forced to then obey the rules. There are strict consequences to disobedience. And because the child does not want to get the consequence, the child does whatever he or she can just to be obedient. Now, authoritarian parents punish children, they do not discipline them. What is the difference between punishment and discipline? Punishment is that consequence that is provided that the parent deems appropriate for whatever is the infraction is. Discipline is teaching the child how to make better choices. Discipline means I'm going to invest the time and the energy in my child so I can teach them how to make wise decisions, and that I'm also teaching them that mistakes are okay. Let me show you how to do it better. That's discipline. An authoritarian parent does not discipline, he or she dictates and punishes. So what happens is that there's a lot of hostility an aggression within the family because the children are either complying because they want to avoid punishment, or they are warring with the parent because they do not like the rules. So let me move on to the second type of parenting, the authoritative parent. Let me share some statements that are representative of the authoritative parent. The authoritative parent puts a lot of effort and energy into creating and maintaining a positive relationship with the child. They take parenting personally. It's personal. They want that relationship with the child. They explain the reasons behind the rules. They don't say it's my way or the highway. They explain to the child why this rule is in place and how it's going to help them. They enforce rules and give consequences, but they take into consideration the child's feelings. They have discussions with them. They allow the child to express themselves appropriately. And then, of course, the parent still has the final word, but they do allow the child to express themselves appropriately. If any of those statements or anything similar to that is what you do or what you're familiar with, then that's authoritative parenting. It's time and energy investment in that child. It's disciplining the child and teaching them appropriate behavior and teaching them how to make better choices. So you find that the authoritative parent would use praise and reward systems with their children because they want them to know that when they do make good choices, they recognize that and they value that, and they're willing to provide you with a reward to show how much they value your ability as a child to make these wise choices. You find that children who are raised by authoritative parents become more responsible adults, and they make wise decisions. They tend to be happier and more successful in life. Next, we go to the permissive parent. The permissive parent sounds something like this. You set the rules, but you rarely enforce them. You don't give out consequences very often. You know, the child messes up, okay, big deal, let's move on. You think your child will learn best with little interference from you. There's no training, there's no discipline, there's no responsibility involved. Those are all ways in which the permissive parent parents. What you find is that a permissive parent may say, well, you know, kids will be kids. They're just kids, you know, and move on. They tend to give back privileges readily. So even if the parent says, okay, I'm going to take away this privilege from you, as one of the panelists suggests, before maybe within 5 minutes, they give it back to you, or the child begs, please, 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 and they give it back to you. They set a time limit on the discipline, and before the time is up, they return your privileges back to you. That's a permissive parent. They do not want to invest the time, because one thing I've learned as a parent is when I discipline my child and I set a consequence, I'm also in timeout. When I say to you that you have to be home by a certain time, that means I have to be home by a certain time. When I say to you, because of this behavior, you will not get to watch TV because of, you know, whatever, I don't get to watch TV either. You know, so oftentimes our discipline is not just only the child who's experiencing it. Sometimes the whole family is experiencing it, depending on your situation. But that's the investment we place in parenting our children. We are willing to give up our time, our energy to make sure our children are parented in a way that that would raise them, as the young people said, into responsible adults. And then finally, we have the parenting style that is uninvolved. The uninvolved parent does not ask the child about schoolwork or homework, does not ask how you're doing in school, rarely knows where the child is or who they're with. They don't spend much time with the child because that investment is not important to that type of parent. You know, I think even animals, when well, there are some that give birth and walk away, but even animals, when they have children, they invest some amount of time in them. But the uninvolved parent does not give guidance, does not give nurturing to the child. There's no parental attention. None of what these young people described as what they expect from their parents is given by the uninvolved parent. They allow the children to raise themselves. They allow the children to make their own decisions. They allow the children to do however they do in school. They do not exhibit any amount of love and nurturing to help raise that child into a responsible young adult. Now, that's not to say that we are either 1, 2, 3, or 4. There are times when we combine some of those, and depending on the age of the child, the responsibility of the child, responsibility level of the child, we may find that there are times when the authoritative parent, which is the best style of parenting, may have to adapt the parenting role to allow the child some more responsibility so they can make decisions on their own. And that comes, as Javon mentioned, as the child grows up and become, especially when you get into the adolescent stage of development and begin nearing that adult stage, that's when parents kind of pull back and allow the child to utilize the skills and the techniques and the training and the discipline that they invested in that child. Because that's when you look at your child and you hear them say things that you said to them. That's when you know you've done a good job. When they tell their friends, when you overhear them repeating what you said to them, to their friends, you know you've done a good job. I can't tell you, even as an adult, as a grandmother now, I still hear myself saying things out of my mouth that my mother said to me growing up. And when I say it, I say, ooh, I sound just like my mom. Even to this day, because of that time investment in raising me, I still remember, and it becomes second nature to me to share some of those things with young people. Even today, I serve as the director of children's ministries at my church. And so I'm kind of like a parent to these kids, right? And oftentimes I find myself in that parental role, training them up and raising them up because of that, what was planted in me as a child. So if mom is on the line, I think she is. Thanks, mom. You've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. And that was a decent little mouthful. The parenting styles, authoritarian, my way or the highway, authoritative, negotiates, teaches, disciplines, and all of that. The permissive and the uninvolved, or some say neglectful parenting style. Any comments, questions from the audience in relation to those styles, those parenting styles? Quickly, because time's rolling, so we need to pop if you want to get in there. You can just unmute your mic and chime in. Yes, Pastor Henry.
Yeah, I don't know. My mother was just about 3 generations away from slavery. I'm not sure whether she was authoritarian or authoritative, and sometimes I try to figure that out. The kind of a disciplinarian that she was, yet in discipline, and again, some of the children didn't go through and are not going through the kind of discipline that I went through. You discipline them that way these days and they go to the police and what have you. But it served me well. I share a little story. It's humorous. I was sent to the city one time to buy groceries and what have you and so on. And the Coney Island was in the city. And so I went and played upper 7 on the 7 and what have you and so on, and lost some of the money. I went home. She always said to me, never lie to me. And so I went home and she asked, well, make up the list, make up how much you spent on this, how much, and where's the extra money? I said, well, I went to Coney Island, told her exactly what I did. And she said, well, I'll talk to you later on this evening, son. Just go ahead, no problem. And so dark, and there was nowhere to run, nowhere to go. She came and she grabbed me and said, well, I'm going to teach you a lesson so that you would understand what you did was gambling and you will never gamble in your life again. Years after, when I had grown a little more, that was in my early teens, I believe, I had grown a little older. The guys would be playing Romeo on the block for water, and I was afraid to touch, to enter in those kind of games. So I'm not sure whether authoritarian or authoritative. Authoritative say that you learn, they discipline you to learn for you so that you would learn something. So I think she was authoritative. But I mean, beating the life out of you, isn't that authoritarian?
Well, I don't think she beat the life out of you because you claim you benefited from it. You claim you're still there. You claim you learned a lot of stuff. She probably gave you a few bits too many, but I think the intent and the motive for it too is critical. But Dr. Neff, I'll leave you. You are supposed to be the expert panelist.
First of all, she did explain why
Yes.
she was doing what she did, the consequence, right? She did explain it. And she did allow you to share what you did, and she accepted that, but she wanted to teach you something, and she did. So the type of consequence has nothing to do with whether you're authoritarian or authoritative. The fact that she explained why there was a rule and there was a consequence makes her authoritative.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you much. Anybody else? Thank you, Pastor Henry, for that insightful, provocative question. Anybody else?
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Yes. Brother
Yeah,
Reno, thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like Pastor Henry, my parents were very heavy on the discipline to that extent. And, you know, I tend to wonder if it was just a small island thing because they're originally from Grenada. And I don't know if it is that they brought some of their parenting values with them. You know, in retrospect, I would say that, you know, probably some of the discipline measures that they used was a little extreme, a little severe. You know, so my question to Dr. Neff is, how much do you advocate scolding? You know, if there's a age level at which you think that it should be stopped, if it is you are advocated. And in one of the examples that you just drew, you made mention of depriving, you know, where the TV is concerned. You said that if it is you put punishment in terms of reaching home at a particular time, the onus is on the parent to be home at that time. I agree with that. But in depriving the child from watching television, wouldn't you think it'd be better if you deprive the child from watching the TV, but you are as the parent can still watch TV because you're saying that you should not? And I think it might be more effective if the parent, you know, still watch the TV, where the child probably is in the bedroom, seeing that you're watching the TV, knowing what they're being deprived of. So your comment, please.
So I did not say that the parents should not watch the TV. I'm saying that, and it all depends on your situation. I think I said those words as well. If the TV is where the child cannot be away from it, then the TV has to be off. Because how can you tell the child, if you have the TV where the child can hear and see, but still be deprived of watching it, how is that punishment? How is that consequence carried out? So, but if the child can go to his or her room, yes, and be apart from the family, certainly that will work. It all depends on your situation and your setup at home. But definitely, if you going back to your point about the coming home, being at home at a certain time, yes, you have to be there. But the television, it depends on your situation. But I would say, you know, I cannot say that it is wrong for a parent to choose a certain type of punishment for their child. I know in this day and age, spanking, beating, whatever you want to call it, of children is frowned upon. And most definitely, when the child reaches adolescence, this act of using a belt on them is something you need to really reconsider as parents in this day and age. I think by that time, if the child reaches adolescence, we should have taught them something along the way. Communication should have been enforced along the way. You should have had those talks that Javon talked about. You should have had those conversations that explains the rules and explains why certain things are done and why certain things are not to be done. Those conversations should already be in play so that when the child reaches that age, you should not be reaching for a belt to discipline them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
makes
think-
sense.
Thank you very much, Brother Reynald, for your question, and Dr. Neff for your response. Am I missing anybody else before we push on?
Yes, me.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
first off, I'm very proud of these young people, Renelle, Kayla, hi honey, and Jill. Oh my goodness, I just am really admiring and listening to you guys. One thing I have found, especially with my mom's parenting style, is that certain things were not negotiable. And I find that some of them are like right now, like when I was growing up, you eat what's on the table, right? And I heard some person saying they had to wake up their 4-year-old to find out what they wanted for breakfast. And I'm like, what is that? How does that happen? Like you eat what is given to you. So authoritative, I don't know, but mommy does not play and she still doesn't at any age. That's all.
Right. Yeah, thank you. But you notice the words sound similar at the start. Authoritarian, authoritative. There's a significant overlap, and I think Dr. Neff spoke carefully to the elements that made the difference. So I just wanted to point that out, even from a linguistic, semantic point of view, that there are similarities. You know, you got to be firmly in control, and but it's just the how about it. I think that makes quite a difference. Thank you very much, Aisha. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about parenting styles and.
Pastor Samuel had a comment.
Okay, yes. Let's have you. Sorry.
I just wanted to appreciate hearing the young people talk and make their contribution. Says a lot about their parents and the investment that you have made. So I'm very encouraged and impressed by the way they express and articulated themselves. So I want to commend you, all parents, for the input and the investment you made in these children. They really, really blessed and encouraged me and make me feel very hopeful about the future because of how they express themselves. So sometimes, you wonder what the future leaders look like. And because of all of the negatives that's happening around the world, it's very uncertain and questionable. But hearing them speak, it gave me hope that the future looks very good. So keep up the good work, parents and you young people. I really appreciate your contribution this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pastor Samuel. Thank you. Young people, take a bow. Take a bow. Pastor Samuel is giving that to you, right? Lenovo Tab, let's hear you, please. Your hand is up.
Okay, good night, everyone. This is...
I know that voice. Good night.
Okay, good night. This is Sister Henry. I just wanted Pastor Roger to know that I'm listening very carefully to everything that he has said. But to make a further point in terms of contribution to the program, and I'm saying this especially for the young people, that whenever a parent administers correction, that parent also suffers with that child. And sometimes I don't think that the children quite understand that part of it. I'm not a biological parent, but I had the opportunity of assisting in the rearing of my nephew. And there were times when I had to come down really heavily on him. And every time I did it, I felt it. And sometimes I think maybe I felt it even more than he did. So, to put a plug in for parents, young people, remember that whenever you do your stuff and it goes contrary to what your parents would have taught you, and they have to correct you, it does something to them. It hurts. That's my contribution.
Yeah, thank you. And duly noted, because disciplining and having to punish or chastise a child is not the most pain-free process. It is painful indeed. And in fact, that's why I think scripture qualifies that the context, whom he loves, he chastens. And that's the context for disciplining. And if that's not present, we don't qualify to administer that to anybody. So you're quite right. Thank you very much, Sister Henry, for that input. We have a question on the chat that says, and Dr. Neff, you'll be happy to respond to that. Can you speak about parents who cling or hover over children, not allowing children to develop into their own? Any advice?
Wow, there's a term for that, the helicopter parent who, who hovers over the child and tries to make every possible decision for that child, does not allow the child to become his own independent self. You know, some parents are clingy and they hold on to their child. They're afraid to let them go. They don't want to let them go. They feel that if they do, they will not stand on their own. They will be in harm's way. They can't make the decisions. And I mean, I really don't have any advice to the parent other than it is your responsibility to allow these children to develop into responsible adult individuals and allow them to make mistakes from which you can teach them the lessons that they are to learn. If you try to make all of the decisions for your children, they would never be able to stand on their own. When they go out into this world to live their lives, they are going to have to make decisions. And if their only way of decision making is to depend on you to make the decision for them, then you're raising some very codependent individuals who will not function on their own. You are being more of a disservice to your child when you hover and when you take charge of their lives and not allow them to grow into the individuals that God designed them to be. So being a helicopter parent is more destructive than is helpful to that child.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. Well said. We're not going to try to help the butterfly to metamorphosize or to get out of its cocoon. We will crush its development. And that's what parents will do if they don't allow the children to become their own person. Thank you very much. Now, time is quickly slipping away. So I want to push ahead and give the young people, the young panelists, an opportunity to speak to their parents, to affirm their parents. I mean, Pastor Samuel talked about that good input that the parents must have had. So I'm going to give you now the opportunity to just say in a minute, probably at most, any words of affirmation to your parents, young panelists. You can say that. Let's start with Raynell.
Okay, so for my parents, they're the ones that never gave up on me. They always support me. They always make it clear that I can come to them at any time about anything, and I appreciate that. In my opinion, I have the best parents ever, and I love them unconditionally. Just the thought of not having them, just the thought that one day I won't be able to be around them is heartbreaking. And I appreciate everything that they have done, everything that they are doing, everything that they will continue to do for me. And I encourage you, mommy and daddy. My mommy is not here, but daddy is here. I encourage you to continue doing a great job as a parent. And for all your other children, I know I'm not perfect. I make mistakes at times, and I appreciate the fact that you all never give up on me. So thank you, and I love you.
Thank you for sharing that to your parents. Thank you very much, Raynell. Kayla, let's go.
For me, I personally would like to thank my mom, especially for her determination. All those training sessions early in the morning, everything that I just meant I wanted to stay home. And her being determined to get me out of bed and get me in the pool at 5 o'clock in the morning has helped to shape me to be a well-disciplined and well-rounded student athlete that I am today. And to just, continue doing everything you have done. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kayla. And earlier, I refused to acknowledge Dr. Sasha Sutherland in the platform because I didn't want Kayla to be worried about saying anything. But Dr. Sasha has been with us, one of the long-standing members. She was unable to be on the panel tonight, but I know she's logged in somewhere and she's hearing this, Kayla. So thank you very much for having shared that to her hearing, right? Wonderful. And I'm sure she's very proud of all of the contributions you've made to tonight's program as well. Javon, let's go.
So if most of you have not picked up as yet, my dad is the host of the program tonight, David Andrew. And I think my mother is tuned into the program as well, somewhere inside the house. But so if there was anything bad that I said tonight, they're the guilty party. So take note of the face. But on a serious note, I just want to show appreciation. I never hesitate to let them know how appreciative I am of the effort that they put into not just me, but my two younger sisters as well. Constantly wanted to tell them that I love them, because I know as children, sometimes we don't necessarily say that as much as the parents would say to us, but I try to make the effort, you know, even though it's not as regularly as they would, but every now and then you have to make sure that they know that you love them, you know? So I just want to publicly affirm and thank my parents for the contributions that they've made towards my development, all the support I've gained, whether it be in academics, co-curricular activities, sports. It has all helped to mold me into the individual that I am. And one thing I'm very happy and grateful for is the fact that they promoted all-roundedness. I think it's important to have the ability to be able to survive in different, how do I call it, environments, if you want to say. But I believe that I'm a very versed individual, and all of that is because of my parents. And so I am very grateful for what they have done for me thus far and what they're going to continue to do.
Right. Thank you, Javon, and thank you, all you young people, for sharing these words. I'm sure your parents feel encouraged to continue doing what they're doing, and keep doing what you're doing too, young panelists. All right, so we winding pretty damn close, and one more question for you before we get final questions and comments. What's going to be your future parenting style? What do you see as being the kind of parents? What kind of parents do you think you want to be? If you could share that in a sentence, panelists, if you can share in probably just one sentence, what kind of parent you think you'd want to be in the future? I see Kayla laughing. So Kayla, you seem like you have it all locked down. Shoot.
I think most of it I will take from my parents, you know, use them as a backboard, as a base of what I'm going to be as a parent. Obviously, by the time it's my turn to be a parent, there will be things that I will have to change and edit. You don't know what the role will be like by then, but most of it I will take based off of what my parents have taught me.
Great, thank you very much. Who's next? Javon.
I think it's a bit early for that question, but just thinking about it, for me, I think I would probably take the authoritative aspect of parenting, right? You want to have a certain level of command over the child, but as well, you don't want to be too commanding over them as well. You want to give them that space as they get through the different stages to be able to blossom into the individuals as well. Another thing I want to take into consideration, though, is that times are evolving. So by the time I have children, the situations that we have now would be different. So there may be a bit of adjustment into the parenting styles. But generally, I think I would take the authoritative path.
Thank you, Javon. So, Raynell?
Well, Kayla and Javon basically said everything that I was about to say, but as they said, I would definitely aspire to become the authoritative. Yes, that type of parenting style I would grasp onto, and most of the things, as Kayla said, I will take from my parents because they are doing a fantastic job, and by God's grace, I hope to accomplish all of these things.
Right. Thank you all very much. So a couple of comments in the chat here. Well done, young panelists and parents. Keep it up. And Aisha is saying that to the panelists and to the parents. Sister Henry is saying very strong affirmations. Your parents should feel justly proud. Somebody says, Sister Joanne is saying, and that's the sister of Dr. Neff. Great job, young panelists. Yes, so those are just comments for the young panelists on tonight's show. So thank you very much. Now, we have to get, so while I give the panelists the opportunity to have the final comments or the final closing remarks, let me ask the audience. And before I ask the audience, Dr. Neff, anything you could share briefly, we have to go quickly, with parents, single parents. Most of these panelists seem to come from a background where they have two parents or they come from an authoritative parenting style, but sometimes you don't quite have that. Anything you might want to share with single parents on our platform by way of trying to get the best out of the situation, trying to make sure they be the best kind of parents, briefly. You're muted.
You know, I think one of the things we have to recognize is that single parents is a reality. You know, when I talk to my single parents, you know, oftentimes they feel as though they feel the burden of having made that decision, whether making the decision purposefully or not to become a single parent. But I often remind them that when God placed Jesus in Mary's womb, she was not married. She was a single woman. I'm a firm believer in that everything that God does in his word is to teach us a lesson and to recognize that there's value in everything and in everybody. And I also believe that children are never mistakes. Children are never mistakes. They may be a surprise to their parents, but they're never mistakes. As a single parent, you are doing it alone and you have to make choices and you have to craft your own parenting style and be responsible because you are the only parent oftentimes who's raising that child. And it's very important that you feel valued and respected as well. And that you also feel confident in your parenting style because God has given you these children to raise. He's placed them in your care and you still have that responsibility as a single parent to raise children into strong, positive, responsible individuals in this society. Make the best of your everyday moments with your child. Be interested in what they do. Try to instill in them values. Don't think that there are no values for you. There are values. Instill in them the values that you know are important. Make sure that you set those consequences. Make sure that you set those boundaries. Make sure that there are clear rules and boundaries for their behavior as well. Because again, God has given this child to you to raise. Make sure that you remember their feelings, make sure that you explain the rules, be an authoritative parent, even though you are doing it on your own. God is with you and he's going to guide you as long as you're consistent and as long as you teach them and train them up and as long as you model the behaviors that you would like to see in them as individuals and as young people who grow up to be respectable adults in our society. Back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. So, panelists, so you prepare your final statements. Before we do that, audience, I'm asking you, has this program been informative? Has it been impactful? What has this program been for you? What are you taking away from this program? We'll have a couple of comments before we come back to the panelists for their very final comments. Anybody from the audience, about 3 or 4 persons quickly because we are running out of time. What are you taking away from this program? Anybody in the audience?
Hi, Brother Renoli again.
Yes.
Okay, kudos to the panelists. And as was mentioned previously, it really gives hope, as someone said, you know, for the future, in that we're seeing young people who are well, what I can say, prepared. They articulate themselves so well. And there's hope knowing that these young people, they have friends and they can pass on some of their values to their friends, you know, for the different parenting types, authoritative and otherwise. You know, I guess it's an eye opener that for the parents who are authoritative, that they're doing a good job, and you know, for us to just continue doing the good job that we're doing, and you know, hearing from the young ones how well they appreciate, you know, our efforts, kind of thing. You know, so it's really an eye opener, and you know, a tap on the back for the parents who are doing a good job. So just to further encourage parents who are doing a good job to continue doing what you're doing, and the ones who are seeing, you know, new parenting styles tonight, you know, to adopt these styles so that we will have well-rounded young people on our hands, you know, which would give us and give them a bright future. Amen.
Thank you very much, Brother Reynald. And for those of you who don't know, Brother Reynald is the father of one of our panelists. That's Reynald. So that's Reynald's dad. Kudos to you too, sir. I take your comment as a representation for all the other parents on the platform. Quickly, panelists, one sentence for your final comments. Before we turn over to, we want to hear from Dr. Sutherland, and then we go to Pastor Henry. He has a couple of announcements. So who's going to go first? Javon.
Okay, so I don't have much to comment on again on the program, but I just want to say thank you for having me on the program to be able to express what I think parenting is, the benefits of it, and some of the nitty-gritty stuff in between that, you know, basically brings about good parenting styles, right? So I'm looking forward to, if there's another program like this, to be a part of it as well. I have no problems with it. This program was actually very informative. I learned a few stuff for myself from this program, and I hope that you, the audience, did as well. So thank you and good night.
Thank you, Javon. Reynald.
So I'd just like to say that I enjoyed being a part of tonight's discussion, and the points that were raised tonight were very informative. And I would just like to say thank you to everyone who decided to have me to be a part of tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you as well. Kayla?
As both Javon and Reynald said, I'd like to say thank you for having us tonight. It was a very good discussion. I hope our views were taken into consideration for those current parents and future parents. And thank you for all the information that we have learned today. And I hope we will all take it and use it for when we become parents later on.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. It's been a pleasure. Dr. Neff, your final sentence?
Yes, I would like to remind parents that in the 24 hours that they have, even though it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week job, that there are 3 main time periods that are valuable times for us to invest in our children. The first is morning time. You know, when you wake up in the morning, when you wake your children up, set the mood for their day with a smile. Let them know how much you love them, affirm them. Let them know that there's something positive about them, words of love that will take them through the day. Then there is meal time, whether it's breakfast, dinner, lunch, whatever time you eat together. It's a time where you can continue to connect with them, continue to build strong relationships with them, have conversations, communicate with them, get to know their heart. And then bedtime, before they go down at the end of the day. Again, it's another time to let them know how much you love them and care about them, how much you respect them, how, you know, strengthen that relationship, build those relationships with them so that they know that even after going through maybe a rough day, maybe a happy day, whatever that day was, that your love for them continues, and that your job as a parent does not end with that day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. Listen, folks, there's so much more that we can talk about, but listen, time is beyond us. I don't like overstaying our welcome. Please, Dr. Sutherland, you're somewhere on the platform. Please, let's hear your voice. Greet us tonight and just share your words with us.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
So to the panelists, Ms. Rennick, I'll say congratulations to you. I know if your mom were on, she would call you mushkalulas and say, I'm so proud, my sugar dumpling. But you know, this is a professional forum, so we won't embarrass you like that. Um, I just want to add something really quickly about the importance of community, David. Because even though, you know, Kayla's dad is in her life, I would consider myself a single parent. But as Dr. Neff was speaking about single parents, I wanted to make sure people don't underestimate the importance of community. So I am currently overseas, but we have a community around Kayla who made sure she got to triathlon this weekend, got to nationals. She placed third, you know, and the importance of having people around you who you trust with your children, you know, Pastor Henry, Sister Henry, Natalie, Donna. You have people who are saying a child doesn't need to feel like they're neglected because one parent is missing. Not having a dad or mom is a challenge, yes, but there are situations where not having those things can be compensated for. So that's just my contribution to tonight, but I am just really proud of Renelle, Javon, and Kayla. It just blessed my heart listening to y'all. And thank you, David, for your hosting, and Dr. Neff for facilitating them. So good night, everybody.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sutherland, and for your addition there. Let me thank the panelists. Let me thank all of you. It was a pleasure being the host here and having these promising minds sit and share on parenting, a youth perspective. It's always a pleasure, Dr. Neff, to have you. I will turn over now to host pastor, Pastor Anthony Henry, and he's going to have the final say as he brings the program to its close. Thank you very much, Pastor Henry.
Thank you very much, David and Mr. Andrew and all the young panelists and Dr. Neff and all the others. Wonderful program indeed. There are a few things. Dr. Sutherland, we want to congratulate you being a mom again. I thought you would have told us that, but congratulations. Lord bless you richly. And we have Dr. Samuel with us also, and he has a big week coming up from Sunday. So Dr. Samuel, turn on your mic, just step in and talk to us about next week, what is happening next week, God's willing.
Thank you, Pastor Henry. Thank you again for such a wonderful program. I'm so encouraged. I'm not a parent biologically as yet, but I'm encouraged and very hopeful as to how I could become that parent. So thanks again to all of you. Okay, so Sunday starts our conference. It is called, our theme is Shift, Directionally Speaking, Time and Chance, Seize the Moment, from Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 11. Our first speaker on Sunday will be Pastor Anthony Henry, the best in the world. He's my best choice always, and he is a great inspiration. I'm sure you will be blessed. It starts at 5 in the evening on Sunday coming, and on Monday evening we have a discussion for men and women in 2 separate breakout rooms. We'll be discussing Seize the Moment, and we have a few surprises for you who will be there to facilitate that. And on Tuesday is a break, there's a night off. Wednesday we have a youth focus discussion from a youth pastor from London. That starts at 7 o'clock. And if you have babies or younger children, well, not babies, but children under 12, we have a breakout room for them so they can be ministered to as well. And then Thursday, Friday is the official part of the continued part of the conference. I'm sorry, Sunday's official part. That's 7 o'clock. And we have Dr. David Bellamy and Apostle Andy from Curacao. Saturday is a youth praise break. That starts at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have like Blessed Messenger, Jared Nurse, and a few others international. So we have quite a few people for the praise break. It's a concert and it's all free. And then Sunday evening is our last evening. And then we have from Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 12 noon is our business seminar. And we'll be having various speakers like David, Andrew, like you heard just now. Pastor Henry as well again, and Renee McCain as well as our speakers as well, and a few others will be on for the business seminar. And that one is a small fee attached to it, and we will send you that information. But the whole conference is free. It's a packed week, and we look forward to all of you participating and really being impacted and empowered. So, and there's a lot more to be confirmed, and we'll let you know about that as well. But we look forward to a tremendous week. Pastor Henry, I can't wait to hear you speak on Sunday. So we look forward to all of you. We will send you the links with all the whether YouTube, Facebook, or Zoom. We send all the links out, so you have all the IDs as to, there's some promotions out, but not with the ID. We send you those IDs after, so you can know which platform suits you best. And look forward to a tremendous, again, shift, directionally speaking, time and chance, seize the moment. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor Henry.
Thank you very much, Pastor Samuel, and looking forward. I'm really excited about Sunday, God's willing. My theme for Sunday is Jessup. Jessup. Not dress up, Jessup. Right, so you have to look up the English dictionary, the French dictionary, the Spanish dictionary to figure out what JESSUP means. All right, looking forward to seeing everyone. David, we have to do these sessions weekly. We ran over time tonight and this subject isn't finished. If you agree with me, those who are in the congregation, just open your mic and tell David for me, yes, it's not finished and we need you back to continue. Just open the mic and tell him so for me, please.
Amen. Amen.
Not finished, we have to continue. We have to continue. It is not finished. Oh Lord. Oh,
It's
Lord
not finished.
All right, we can't do it next week because we are locked into Pastor Samuel's convention next week, but we'll find a time when we can continue this subject on parenting. And the young panelists have already said they want to come back. So we'll have to find a way how we can get some adults into it and some of the younger ones into it and continue with it. But we'll let you know. Lord bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks for joining us. And all you parents, I hope you're going to put something into practice, make your parenting, how many weeks it is? 676? 876 or 976?
936.
It starts at 9:36, but we can
9:36.
send this to them, Pastor Henry, so they can see where they are.
Yeah, 936 weeks. Great. So one of the things that frightened me, Dr. Neff, is when you made half of the bottle, because the child is just 9 years of age, literally is in school, hasn't started secondary school as yet, but has reached half of its life. Yeah, we have to do this. We have to do this. Lord bless you all. Have a wonderful night. We have a lot more to share, and we are going to see you in the future, next 2 weeks when we come back together. Amen. Happy elections. Go and vote, Dr. Neff.
Already did. Voted and counted.
Yes, all you people from the States, make sure you vote. And I am free to tell you who to vote for. Just write me and I've already prayed who I want to win. So just write me and I'll tell you who
Done
to
and
vote
done.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night,
All right.
good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Good, good.
All right, good night. Good job, Dr. Neff.
Good night. Hi, Aisha.